Welcome, everybody, to 13 Minutes of Gig News in 13 minutes or less. So, top story today, the New York City ruling on Uber, Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, I should say, $18 an hour minimum wage for New York City. Not a win, you guys. I'm going to just straight up say it. I don't know how New York City people feel about this, but it's not a win. In fact, if it was a higher amount, I would still say like $25. I'd still say not a win, because if there's a good amount of people earning more than what they cap the minimum, count on the fact that those people, the hustlers out there earning and the full timers, will lose money, because these companies will never, ever, ever out of their pocket supplement income. So what did they do to bring the people who in these articles, they're saying that the studies have revealed that people in New York City, delivery drivers, earn on average $11 an hour. I would say to that, I question that heavily, because how could you afford to live in New York City for $11 an hour, especially when New York City's minimum wage is $15 or more? And I mean, you can go get a job, and even after taxes, you'd make more than $11 an hour. So if that's the case, and you're wasting gas and this and that and the other, and you're being independent, there is literally no reason to be making $11 an hour. Go get a W-2 job. There are a lot of articles about immigrants using fake accounts. We know fake accounts are sold on the black market. We know that for about $100, you can get a DoorDash, Uber Eats account, and it's not you. So are people willing is some of this study figuring in, and I'm not just saying illegals, but people who are earning that because they bought a black market account? Because that's a lot different of a story. They need to take into account active, proven accounts where the user is the user. In this story, we've got to talk about this, because a lot of times years pass and people forget. So let's not forget what happened pre-pandemic. I think 2017, New York City made a ruling on rideshare. That ruling said $27 and some odd change per hour with expenses counted in for rideshare drivers. That fell apart like nobody's business. I've talked about this before. I know drivers in New York City. I know drivers who are veterans who have been doing it since 2015 or prior, just like myself. I've been on since 2015. So I know people in New York City who are doing rideshare, working 40, 50 hours a week, and working Fridays, Saturday nights, midnight hours, some of the hardest shifts there are. And when they made that rule, what happened? The people who made $13, $14 an hour, same type of study, who fell underneath that line, they had to be brought up to that line. So at $13, you got to make up $14 an hour for every one of those drivers making that amount. Do you think Uber and Lyft were taking more out of their losses because they don't make a profit? You think they were taking more out of their losses to make up that? You're crazy, because all they do behind the wall of the algorithm, and this isn't just DoorDash, this is all of them. Behind the wall of the algorithm, all they're doing is taking from the top earners and giving it to the bottom earners. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with trying to make sure that everybody's earning, but I can attest for my market, I know for a fact there are people who hustle way harder than other people. I know a lot of people who are they just don't hustle as much. They sit at home, they cherry pick, and cherry picking's fine. Since it's allowed, and since you're an independent contractor, that's fine. But you can't just cherry pick and then complain about how much you earn if cherry picking's not working for you. You need to get out there and try and do all the different things you could do. Like example for DoorDash, go for the top dasher thing and take a lot and see what happens. Again, everybody should be learning. If you take a job, a W-2 job, and it pays X amount, and you find out the work, you could be making twice as much doing some construction work and you're able to do construction work, well, wouldn't you go do that? Or it doesn't have to be construction, anything. But at some point, you value your time as a certain amount. And that's where these things stem from, because people feel underpaid, and they probably are. The problem is, in this article, they're saying that 60,000 delivery people work in New York City alone. I don't know if that's from New York Times. I don't know if that stat includes all of the boroughs or if they're just talking about Manhattan, because a lot of this article seems to be about Manhattan. So there might even be more. But look, if there's 60,000 people doing something, of course everybody's not going to make a ton of money, because the biggest problem here that involves the company side is oversaturation. So let's go through this, because Uber, Lyft, and Grubhub, and there's a smaller company that we'll talk about because I think this is a very interesting fact too, all were fighting this law in July that was supposed to go into effect. Now, the way they did it was disgusting. Corporate greed. They had agreed to this, and then about a week before it was supposed to go into place, they decided, you know what, we're not going to do that. Let's go to court on this. And they did get a judge to shoot this down a lot quicker. This is, for those of you that weren't working in the gig economy in 2017 and don't remember firsthand, you can go read articles, but don't remember firsthand what the New York City 2736 or whatever it was minimum wage worked out to, is that everybody that was a top earner, the people that I know out there who live in New York City area, who were working 40, 50 hours in some of the hardest shifts and making $50+ an hour, they all went down into the 30s an hour. So that 27 minimum, they were a little above it. I always talk about floor meets ceiling. They were a little above it, but they were losing $20 an hour because of the new law. Well, I know some people who do food delivery who make more than 18. So New York City delivery workers will start making $18 an hour. And it is the first of its kind law in this country. Now, if you're wondering about Washington State and Prop 22 covers delivery, but it's not a minimum wage. Washington State only covers rideshare drivers, so this is a first of its kind law. So on Thursday, they ruled that here's what it mandates: $17.96 flat hourly rate. Now, if I'm not mistaken, because I know in my market even it can be 17, so it's only cents above it. But I believe in New York, the pay by hour for DoorDash was 18. So you just lost 4 cents to the state as opposed to what DoorDash was paying. And I'm not saying it was a good idea, but pay by hour was paying you more in New York, or at least in a lot of cities. I can't speak exactly for New York, but here's the thing. You can get paid a flat hourly rate of $17.96 an hour. Now, remember, the minimum wage is $15 an hour, or pay 50 cents a minute per delivery. So let's take an hour. In an hour, if you do 2 deliveries, and let's even give it a gap, because if at that kind of thing, you'd want to be taking everything, because it wouldn't matter what the amount is. You don't need to cherry pick. So, but we'll give it a gap. We'll say that you only worked 50 minutes of the hour, okay? So if you work 50 minutes of the hour, that's $25 an hour. That gives you 10 minutes off every hour to pick the right order for you. So it does, or 5 in between each one. That's a little bit of allowing some cherry picking. And that part is not fully done on how they're going to allow that. Do you have to take everything? What's going to go on? But $17.96 or 50 cents an hour. So 25, if you work 50 minutes, $25 an hour. If you work the whole 60 doing deliveries, that's going to be $30 an hour. Okay, but here's the thing. There is a small delivery company that was actually included in this suit called Relay Deliveries. This is very interesting. Relay Deliveries made the same argument that Uber, Lyft, or Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash made which is that that the expense would that the cost would put them out of business. That they were too small of a company, unlike the giants, to pay that. So they got an exemption. The judge said, you don't have to do that. So now Relay Delivery is still operating under the same methodology that they have been, but Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub have to operate under the new law. But they're already giving exemptions. So kind of strange. I'm sure there's some reasoning there. I'm not sure what it is. But the bottom line is, look, guys, so we've got all the tens of thousands of workers in the New York City area. And, here's the thing. Is it oversaturation? Because that part, I will say, the company needs to deal with that. The company needs to deal with oversaturation because they know they're doing it. There's no question about it. They oversaturate to 400 to 100% plus in almost every market. Maybe in smaller rural areas, they keep it smaller because if they had 400% in a rural area, nobody'd get any orders and everybody'd quit, and then they'd have nobody. So I get a little oversaturation because you never know how many people will log on, but 400% plus in almost every big city, that's crazy, and that should not be the case. I also want to point out that also signed into law this week, and this jumps back over to California. This isn't gig work, guys, but every fast food worker in California will now be paid minimum wage of $20 per hour. That is more than the 120% Prop 22 pays you to use your own vehicle and deliver food. So now, if you live in an area in California, because California's minimum wage varies depending on where you are, a lot of places are $16. So if you're making 120% of 16, you're not at 20, and then you got your expenses. Even 20 with taxes taken out as a W-2, you're going to be making $3, $4 more than you would with the Prop 22 money. So here's my question. Is this the right direction? Because even the solution, $18 an hour, that doesn't let you live in New York City. And it's going to wreck it for the people who actually hustle and really do this job full time and stuff and make it work. That's 13 minutes of news in just under 13 minutes. Peace.